Hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Star Wars Universe Podcast. I'm your host, James, and as we enter 2025, I want to hear about what you've been up to in Star Wars recently. This month, we have a guest, Mackenzie Vee Crompton, who is a long-time fan, but has a very interesting story about how she got into it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to past James and Mackenzie for their conversation. Mackenzie, thank you for joining me on this call. And first off, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, James. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. So we've actually never met. We've only conversed through Instagram Messenger. First time seeing you, first time meeting you. Always love to meet new Star Wars fans, and really looking forward to the conversation we're about to have. First question. Tell me about how you initially got attracted to Star Wars and the wider universe and all the stuff that goes alongside it.
A bit of a funny story. So, as a kid growing up, Star Wars was never really ever mentioned in the 90s as such. It was all 90s cartoons for me, and also very old cartoons. In school, didn't really hang out with the boys as such. It was usually girls or just on my own sort of thing. And even then, when I did hang out with the boys, Star Wars wasn't really mentioned until I think it was Walker's Crisps. They did Pogs, and they did the Star Wars Pogs. And my mum was collecting all these books, and she was like, "Oh, do you like Star Wars?" I was like, "No, I don't even know what it is." And I just remember always seeing a picture of Chewbacca or somebody with a laser, and I was like, other than He-Man and one or two other things, I was never really interested in lasers and sci-fi stuff. So I was like, no, you can keep it. And then...
Would it be this by any chance?
It would, yes, it would be that one. We had about 4 of them because Mum worked... I grew up in a pub. So
nice.
Obviously we're surrounded by Walker's Crisps. I used to eat a lot of crisps, and I'd just keep them and go, here you go, Mum. And anyway, Sheridan, my sister, who was a big Star Wars fan, she's a lot older than me, and she was there the first time around, literally. So she's got very happy memories and lots of toys. And she would visit very occasionally, but when she did come to visit, she was like, "Oh, do you not like it?" I was like, "No." I'd never seen it, so I couldn't say whether I liked it or not, but that was just my mindset. And I was about 7 or 8 at the time, maybe 9. And anyway, when Star Wars came out again in 1999, actually no, I'll tell you what, it was when they started to do the rounds and they released the videos, the gold edition, I think
97.
It was just yeah
the
that's
editions.
when it started to be all big and Star Wars again and advertising it on the telly, and all I could see was spaceships, lasers, and that was it. And I was just like, no, I'm not into war. No, you can keep it. It's definitely a boys thing, not into that. Even though I was really tomboyish and liked boy stuff and had lots of boys' toys, just was not interested. Didn't know the story. Anyway, 1999 came along, and I just had major back surgery, was pretty out of it on a regular basis. And then we used to go and stay at a caravan site. And I used to spend a lot of time with just Dad alone. And Dad said to me, you're not interested in seeing the films because, they're in the post office for rent, renting video.
Going back a time,
and it was the gold edition as well. And I went, I don't know, Dad, but Phantom Menace was being rammed down our throats on the telly and everything. And all I could see was just a man in red and black face paint with spikes, swords. And I was just like, it's a war film. I don't like war films, And it was like, there's a lot more to it than that. I ended up where one night, and I'll always remember it, and bearing in mind, even though, yes, the names are kind of flying around, I never actually paid attention to anyone's name, didn't know the name of the characters. But in one dream, and I remember it to this day, I was somewhere in a field, and Vader was chasing me with his lightsaber. He was on the hunt for me, and I was running away from him as fast as I could. And, he'd nearly catch me at every turn off and everything. And I just thought, I don't know how to fight this person. I don't know how to escape. And I'm not sure if I did turn around in a desperate bid to like maybe fight him or if I got away. But I woke up, and all I thought when I woke up was like, okay, world, fine, it's a fad. I will watch the damn film. Since my own brain is against me now, I will do it. Anyway, I says, go on then, Dad, let's endure this. So he got me the first one. Unfortunately, Dad did let slip that Vader was Luke Skywalker's father, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. I know, what a shame when I think about it now, but I was like, yeah, all right then. So I sat completely thinking, ugh. And then the music comes on, and I just thought, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to think about this at all. The music was good. And then the ship appears and it keeps on going on and on and on and on. And I was like, that reminds me a little bit of a He-Man sort of vibe. Okay, yeah, all right, we'll go with this then. And then Vader turns up, and the two droids, R2-D2 and 3PO, and they had a bit of personality from the word get-go. And I was like, oh, okay. But when Vader comes along, I've always loved villains. Villains are my thing, even from a young age. The first villain I ever wanted to be when I was 3 was Maleficent from Disney. So villains are a big thing for me. They've got to be the master villains. And Vader instantly is clearly a master villain. And I thought, oh, okay, right. He's tall, imposing, great. Deep voice, didn't know that. That's really, that's quite, he's just like in the dream. That's quite scary. But it's as soon as he's got somebody in a death grip and he's holding him up and, throws him to the ground, that I thought, okay, I'm slightly invested. Where's this going? And then obviously the film then proceeds, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, I actually enjoyed that. Let's watch the next one. So Dad then went and got the other two. Well, it was the other two that got me hooked, and it was the other two that I used to watch on repeat more than the first one, even though the first one's good. But it was just a dynamic. The story was so unique and really easy to follow. There was nothing difficult about it. I could appreciate the graphics of the time because obviously, all right, it was only a little time later, decade and a half, 2 decades later, but still a big difference compared to, say, the 70s and basically nearly 2000. And I was just really impressed. And then we got a copy, naughty, but it left the cinema, and I was desperate to see Phantom Menace. I wanted to see how it would compare, and I actually got really protective over the first original 3, thinking, oh God. And I was only 13 at the time, but even then I was like, oh God, I hope that they don't change the intro. And I was very impressed that they didn't change the intro. It was all the same. And I have to say, I suppose because I was 13 and then 14, I did really enjoy Phantom Menace. It wasn't as bad as everybody made out to be. There were some cheap bits and it could have done without Jar Jar Binks, but never mind. At one point, I don't know why anybody thought to get this for me, but I did have a Jar Jar Binks head rucksack bought for me.
Okay.
So I had that for years, even though I was looking at it going, you can't really get much in it. It's literally just a head, a soft toy head. And he lived in the cupboard for ages, but don't have him anymore.
That's a shame.
But no, I then started collecting every single magazine and comic that would come out. My mum would get me a subscription. By the end of it, I literally had a pile 2 foot deep of each magazine and comics and stuff. I've since got rid of them because I've collected comic books, which is basically the same as those that come out in a book format, and it just gave me a bit more space. Amazingly, didn't sell for a lot. But
unless it's the 70s Marvel versions.
They're not
they don't
interested.
sell for a lot, no.
No, they don't. I suppose because you can get them really and stuff. But I was completely dedicated, and everything was Star Wars for me from that point on. And even though I didn't like reading, I would get the books. So I've got quite a huge collection of books. Admittedly, I've not read every single one, but I used to read, as you say, Wikipedia and watch videos and stuff. And I have since started slowly listening to them all on Audible, even though some of them are annoyingly abridged. But they are quite good because they have the sound effects and things. And I like that, because obviously I don't have to put any effort into reading because I'm a little bit dyslexic and too much of it just annoys me. It's just a chore.
It's the one thing I always sort of push for Star Wars Audible, especially, is the amount of production that goes into it, and the sound effects and the music and all of that.
Yeah.
It adds so much to the story.
It does. And I have to say that I was actually impressed with what we'll call the sequels, original sequels, before it became non-canon. They were good. The characters like Grand Admiral Thrawn, he was fantastic. Really good. I don't feel that Disney's done him justice in any way, shape or form, except for in the Rebels series.
He was very good in Rebels. I think they're sort of relying on his Rebels persona a little bit in Ahsoka, and I think he will come into his own. They didn't show him enough.
No, in Ahsoka, I don't know, even his look was not as good as that could have been. I think it's because we've got that square, rigid look, and it was just the way he wasn't quite how I would have had him, but that's just me. Hopefully we'll come into his own, as you say. But yeah, I did love the books, and I even went on to reading fan fiction and all sorts, so I was really, really big on it. I collected all the games, anything to do with Star Wars. In fact, for years, I used to have a 6 foot or 7 foot Darth Vader cardboard cut out in the corner of my room with his lightsaber and stuff, you know. And I had lightsabers. I had everything, really. And I used to be part of the Star Wars fan club, and I still have the T-shirt that I bought, and it still fits because it was quite large at the time. So yeah, but over the years, and more so in recent years, because I keep moving house and I don't follow it the same way as I used to, I have, you know, kind of sold off bits and pieces, especially as they don't get played with. And yeah, you can keep stuff in boxes, but let's be fair, they're there to be enjoyed. Ultimately, what's the point of just staring at something in a box? Fine, yeah, I've done that and stuff, but that was mostly because of mum being, oh, it might be worth something, don't play with it. Well, I want to play with it, that's the whole point, but okay.
Why have you bought a child a toy?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a child anymore, but yeah, still.
But no, it's why buy anyone a toy? Like, I've got a number of Funkos which are just above my head. The only ones that are still in the box are the ones that I haven't yet opened on my YouTube channel. So it's,
right, okay.
So yes, just sort of going back a step to what you were saying about the Walker's Tazos. Obviously, I then said, "Is this what you meant?" For anyone who wants to see what we're talking about, I'll link the YouTube video where I opened that in the YouTube description, and also on the description for the podcast as well, so you can see exactly what Mackenzie is talking about in what she collected in as a kid, innocently and without any interest in what it was.
Yeah.
So obviously you've explained to me, and that's a brilliant story of almost a reluctant entry into the Star Wars universe. And you then sort of expanded out into the comics and the books and everything else. I can probably guess the answer to this next question, but who's your favorite character?
Oh, it's Vader, obviously.
Yeah, I would have assumed
Vader,
yeah.
And then, believe it or not, it is actually Luke Skywalker.
Okay, so you go from full villain to full hero on your top two. That's awesome. What did you think of Luke's appearances in things like The Mandalorian and sort of it was
brilliant.
As soon
as I saw his cape, I knew it was him.
Yeah.
There was no mystery for me. Other people, including my sister, was like, who's that? You know, and she nearly jumped off the sofa, she told me when she saw it. She was like, oh my God. But even I saw him and I was like, that's Luke. It's Luke. You know, I just knew from the way he moved.
Yeah.
It's awful when you know somebody by the way they walk, isn't it? But I actually know people just by their body language sometimes, and I've gone, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah, whether it's be a distinctive gait or just how they hold themselves, people have a silhouette that you can recognise, don't you?
Special effects, were fantastic. Sorry, yeah.
They were absolutely amazing. I don't know if you know this, but when they were actually filming it, Dave Filoni originally told everyone that it was going to be Plo Koon, because Plo Koon is his favourite character, and so they just had the guy with the dots on his face, and Mark Hamill was in the bowels of the studio somewhere. But yeah, originally, and even in the sort of season 2 visual guide, it has a whole thing about how it was told to be Plo Koon, and Plo Koon had somehow survived Order 66. I think I've said it on the pod in the past, where when I sat there and watched that episode, it was at a time where both my children were at nursery, my wife was in the office, and I was working from home. And so I would get all of them out the door for about 10 to 8 in the morning. The episode dropped to 8. I would watch it, freak out for 15 minutes, and then go and do my day's work.
Yeah.
And watching that, I remember sat on the sofa, tears streaming down my face, and I just sat there in silence, and actually ended up being late for work, logging on. I was meant to be on at 9 o'clock, and I logged on at like 9:15. I just sat there in silence, and it was just tears of pure happiness. And I've never been a particularly big Luke fan, but when you see the X-wing come through, and I'm like immediately going, who's got an X-wing? Has Ezra somehow got an X-wing? Who could it be?
Yeah, I just knew it.
Yeah, and then you see the cloak, as you say, and then you see the hand, and I'm looking at the hilt, going, it's Luke. Oh my God, they're bringing Luke in. It's probably one of the few moments in the Disney era where every single fan has united and gone, yes.
Yeah. Because I must confess, some of it I've sat and gone, oh, that's a bit Saturday afternoon. Some of it I find a bit mundane, I won't lie. And I know there's people going, oh no, it's brilliant, but I don't know, I just feel it could have been better. I feel like I could have done it better, but that's because I'm an actor. And I don't mean the performance. The performances are fine. It's just a story, and I'm a bit, you know what, you don't have to make it so complex. It can still be absolutely fantastic without making it too And then, but that's just me. I can't really pinpoint any of it. Some of it's a bit of a drag. I mean, I am very disappointed in the Book of Boba Fett. You know, Boba Fett is not that character. You know, if you read the books and all that sort of stuff, this guy, and then this guy turns up, and it's like, nah.
Yeah, I know exactly. I know exactly what you mean, and I would probably say Book of Boba Fett is probably the weakest of the Star Wars live action. And that might be a controversial take, not in terms of anyone saying it's the best, but some people saying there is other stuff worse. But
I mean, I haven't actually watched. I've still not got around to Skeleton Crew yet. I've still not watched all of the one that got cancelled. What was it?
The Acolyte.
I can't remember if there's anything else out at the minute, to be perfectly honest with you, because I just don't follow it the same, because I've been a little bit. Mandalorian was great, really great in some bits, and then other bits was just like, oh, come on. And I felt a little bit like that with 1 or 2 episodes of Ahsoka, but then other parts I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty good actually. I especially liked Ahsoka when she was in Mandalorian. You know, probably more so. I really love the fact that they've brought Ahsoka to meeting Luke Skywalker, because that's bringing the prequel and the sequel together. And it's such a shame that they haven't done yet. And I get it, you know, Carrie Fisher's no longer with us, but with the technology they have got, it'd be nice to see Princess Leia. I would like them to build on that story, not just in the books, but in real life. I want to see her and Han, you know, bonding and
maybe a young Ben.
Kylo Ren, Ben. Yeah, that was a ridiculous. I'll come to that in a minute. Excuse me. Go back. I would like to see Luke and Leia bond, because I'm your sister. Vader's your father. The end.
Yeah, yeah.
Straight fast forward into the future. That's it. And you kind of go, right, well, I know there's a whole bit of drama in between that. And we've got the books, and they are fantastic. But as a visual, now that they're bringing it all together, why have they not yet touched on this? I don't get it. They need to. I know they need to make it all new for the next generation. But while these people are still here and alive, just get on with it.
Yeah. No, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I know that I don't know where we're at in terms of the Lando movie or whether it's going to be a TV series, but Donald Glover has said that there is potential for it also to include Billy D. Williams. So it's kind of a Billy D. Williams almost narrating it, and then it sort of cuts back and shows it happening, and then it's Donald Glover. So you can utilize the past to emphasize the future and bring it up and give it that gravitas. And I think that they did miss some opportunities in 7, 8, and 9. I think the best moment of that specific criteria was showing Luke and Leia training together, and that they both
one of my best favorite moments in that, because that's what we feel we've missed. Because even though people are like, yeah, but they're old now, we want the new stuff. Yeah, but the whole point of this entire saga to begin with was Luke, Leia, Han, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Darth Vader. Oh, and the Emperor.
Yeah,
your key
absolutely.
Characters. That's what the story began with. And even, I'm not saying you want to drag it out forever, but that is the family you started with.
And even boiling it down to, it's a farm boy from Tatooine trying to rescue a princess. That's the core story of the first one. And you bring in the likes of Han, you bring in Obi-Wan, and the big bad is Vader. Obviously we don't meet the Emperor in episode 4. But that is then added on to in the later ones, and we can see how they've put together the building blocks of that original trilogy. And we have so much in what is now classified as Legends to draw from, and even in canon, the books, Bloodline, things like that, which are heavily Leia focused. I don't know if there's an issue with the Carrie Fisher estate, which I can't imagine there is, because her daughter is in the films as well.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and they obviously
never had an issue with it. So
no, and I know obviously they've utilized the technology at the end of Rogue One. They utilize the technology in The Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if it's a budget thing. It might well be a budget thing to do an entire series, whereas they have brought in obviously young Leia in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That was brilliant. Was that? I really enjoyed that.
I love seeing how we get to where we know, and filling in the gaps, and things like Book of Boba Fett. I kind of looked at it and went, I didn't necessarily need that, but at the same time, for other events later on, it's kind of, you do need a little bit of context as to how suddenly Boba Fett is A, alive, and B, running.
I mean, they've stuck with the original story of him getting dragged out of the Sarlacc pit, or he pulls himself out of it. So that was one thing, and I was like, yep, that's fine with me. But then when it goes into all this, getting in with the Sand People and stuff like that, I was like, oh God, is this all you could think of? Seriously, come on.
I think if they wanted to explore the Tusken culture and the Tusken people, they could have done that by utilizing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, just like the Kenobi book by John Jackson Miller, which is one of the last books to be released. I think it actually crosses over the threshold of the Disney acquisition, but it was still then released. Okay. It's classified as Legends. But there's a lot of Obi-Wan interacting with Tusken Raiders and Jawas and things like that. I just don't think they knew really which way to go with it. They had 2 series upcoming, both of which were going to be set on Tatooine, both of which were set in different time periods. And I think they just misstepped, really. It's obviously now we
really needed to know them. Sometimes, I know some people disagree, but sometimes characters are just there to just be baddies or goodies or whatever. That you don't
Yeah.
need a story for everything,
No.
you just need, oh yeah, you stay away from them, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there's an element of they're trying to appease too many groups of people at one time.
Yeah, yeah.
And doing that, you end up with kind of the situation we're in at the moment where hardly anyone's happy. And I openly admit, already have done, that there are series which I probably won't watch again. And if I do, then it will be for a reason, such as the podcast. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
but I always try and find something to enjoy, even
Mm.
if it's just like the two huts that we see in Book of Boba Fett, the Mando
Yeah.
episodes which reunite Din
Hmm.
and Grogu, and we see Luke and things
Yeah.
like that. There are elements to that series which I absolutely love. But
Mm.
overall, the series is for me completely missable and not what I would classify as essential viewing, with the exception of the two Mando episodes, because otherwise you're sat there going, "Why is Grogu back?" But yeah, so in terms of sort of favorites as well, we've spoken about a lot about different characters. Do you have a favorite ship at all, or vehicle, or droid? It can be anyone, all three.
I think I do like the double act of C3PO, even if he is a whinging, moaning mini, and R2D2. I do like BB-8. I think, yeah, I like them. I don't live by them, but I like them. It is exciting to see them. I haven't really bonded with the others as such. I do like I do like the silly ones, like what you get on the on the Death Star, little ones on. I forgot what they call them now,
The
but
little
they're
mouse
like little
droids.
boxes and they run around and go and then
Yeah,
disappear. Like, oh, you're a problem. We need to go and report this and run away like a little
yeah,
dog. I like that.
yeah. The
But
little mouse
the, the
droids.
silly the silly stuff, yeah, like that's right. A ship. I don't know why, but I quite like the Death Star. It's imposing. On the Star Destroyer, I just like the bridge where Vader or any of the characters walk up and down,
Mm,
and it's actually the windows. I like. This is going to sound daft. I like large windows. I like seeing out into the world, and so I actually like the idea of being able to stand and look around at the galaxy. And I just like that view. The Millennium Falcon obviously is very nostalgic, but if I was to go around a shop to buy a ship, that would not be on the top 10 list.
it's potentially a controversial opinion, but
Yeah, yeah.
and this is what I love about having different conversations about with different people, is everyone has a different favorite, and
Mm,
some of them will align, but quite often, for
yeah.
very very different reasons, everyone has a different favorite thing. Have you read any of the Dr. Aphra comics?
Yes, I was very much a fan of that. I was just going to quickly say as well, TIE fighters, they are annoying, but at the same time, I do love when you hear them because there's such an iconic sound.
Yeah,
Again, you think, oh God, and that's brilliant. So they're absolutely rubbish. They die as soon as
yeah,
you look at them, but that's it. But yeah, going into Dr. Afra, that's how I pronounce it, isn't it?
yes,
I used to
yeah,
look at it going, is it Afra and this? But yeah, I loved it because I like seeing Vader have that slight human side.
mm,
And I also like how he can be cruel. I liked seeing her basically bricking it, but at the same time thinking, oh, wow, there's this guy. I've got to help him, otherwise, I'm going to die. Kind of need to do this gig to get paid or whatever it is that she's doing. It's a while ago since I read it. But they go off on these little adventures together.
mm.
To see Vader's patience tried and tested
Repeatedly.
as a canon book rather than just in fan fiction, because I've seen it a lot in fan fiction,
Yeah,
which was very well done. A lot of the fan fictions, or not a lot, but a few fan fictions I've read, they've been brilliant. The way that they've brought out Vader's personality,
mm,
probably better than even Disney or some books have, in my opinion, with the original trilogy and stuff. But yeah, I like that dynamic, how he has to use her. But I especially liked how she requests that if you're gonna kill me, lightsaber back of the head kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, just make it
And
quick.
yeah, don't be doing your usual, you know, whatever, and please, whatever you do, don't throw me out into space.
Yeah,
So what does he do after she betrays him to the Emperor, thinking I need to get out of this situation? But the Emperor clearly knows, and Vader knows it as well. How he drags her out, puts her in the pod, hits the button, and out she goes. My only issue with that is that while it is just a story, and that really annoyed me in the episode 8, is once you're in space, you're done.
yeah, yeah,
You are done. There is no coming back for it. Doesn't matter how powerful you are, you're done.
yeah.
She somehow survives because somebody's ready and waiting to capture her, and then she disappears. I do know, and I need to read it. I keep promising myself to do so, but I always get sidetracked. But she comes back into it, and I think Vader learns that she's alive.
Yeah.
And I
So
can only imagine that doesn't go well.
so I've followed my main focus of my comic reading in terms of Aphra and Vader has been the Darth Vader comic, which is an absolutely fantastic read, and I would highly recommend anyone, if you're looking to get into Star Wars comics, start with the Vader series.
Probably the best, yeah.
Yeah, and I've just started the first run of Aphra, but I've always enjoyed her sort of popping up and being like, "Hi, me again."
Yeah,
but
and
I also love her.
Yeah,
I also love her her droid companions, which is actually kind of where I was sort of starting to sort of weave towards in terms of double acts, which you've obviously mentioned R2 and 3PO a couple of times. 000 and BT1 are fantastic. They are so much fun, and they are, as someone who likes villains, and anyone out there who does like villains as well, they are the evil 3PO and R2. And they are absolutely fantastic. What they say and how they say it and all the rest of it is just
so dry and
fantastic.
sarcastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. And you can almost hear like a slightly deeper 3PO voice saying it, and just the sinister tones to it and things like that. But yeah, so have you sort of, a lot of our conversations have centered around either prequel or original trilogy era with a little bit of sequel trilogy. Have you explored any of the other eras, such as the High Republic at all? Or
I was never interested in the Old Republic, New like, you know, the 1,000 years before stories and all that. I considered it, I looked at it, but I wasn't too bothered. But as a kid with the comics, I had Tales of Jabba's Palace.
Oh yeah.
So I've got and as books, I've got Tales of Jabba's Palace, Tales of the Empire, and Tales of Bounty Hunters. So I was intrigued because they have snippets of the originals in there as well. So I liked that. And that's where I learned a bit more about Boba Fett. And it was a very interesting one. So it's one where, I think it's in the Tales of Bounty Hunter. I don't remember the whole story now, but Boba Fett is at Jabba's palace, and Leia has been captured. You know, she's there. She's pre-bikini or in the bikini, whatever. And he is in a cell. And this was something very unusual in Star Wars, where how it got quite adult very briefly. She's literally thrown into the cell with Fett, and the guard says, "Present from Jabba, enjoy her." And Boba still, you know, his helmet on, doesn't take it off, etc. And she scrambles into the corner. She's freezing cold, and she's like, you know, "Don't you touch me," you know. She's quite defensive, obviously. And he says, "Well, don't worry, I'm not interested. Sex between those not married is immoral." Those are his words, literally.
Oh wow.
And he throws her or she, you know, he sort of gives her a blanket. I can't remember if he offers her the bed, but she's just like, you know, keep away, and that is it. And he practically is trained to sleep with one eye open almost, you know. So that's it. But he's basically given her a free night where she's not going to get any, you know, problems, and that's it. Yeah. But it was interesting to show, because you do wonder what happens when they get captured and all that carry on, and that's what happens to her.
And it's interesting they went kind of that
Very
detailed and
dark
that
for that.
dark, because as adults you can kind of go, you can probably imagine what's going to
Yeah.
happen to the likes of the
Mm.
the Twi'lek dancer and things like that. You can probably
Yep.
imagine what
Yep.
profession she is, or what
Yep.
happens in those sort of scenarios. Whereas kids is like, oh, the green lady with the head tentacles is dancing, and
Yeah.
it just goes completely over their head,
Yeah, of
as it
course,
should.
yeah.
But there's one thing that I enjoy that is done in Star Wars. They do add multiple layers of stuff, and
Yes.
without
Yeah.
you don't always have to expressly say something. You can just kind of let it hang in the
Yeah.
air a little bit and
And let you
inference.
decide what happens. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and inference is deafening at times, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot in modern cinema, I would say, and filmmaking where it has to be expressly said, and
Yes.
that frustrates me quite a lot, because it's like, no, I've read so many books over the years, Star Wars and non, where I've had then brilliant conversations with people of like, how did this actually end? Like,
Yeah.
what did
Yeah.
you take
Yeah.
away from it and things like that? And it has
Yeah.
an ending, and but it's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in sort of slightly older Star Wars, and I would actually say there's quite a lot in Skeleton Crew as well, because it
Mm.
really follows an older formula of TV making, where
Right.
it's very 80s Amblin. So you've got
Right. Okay.
your ETs and your Goonies and things like that.
A bit inspired from Stranger Things, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have this amazing actor in Jude Law, who
Oh, yes, of
is
course, isn't it? Yeah. Mm.
is yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's amazing with these children.
Mm.
But you can always see, it's always in his eyes, you can always see, and sometimes in his body movements he's a little bit twitchy and like anticipating it. You can see that there's something else going on.
Yeah.
I won't spoil anything, but the
I'll
penultimate
also run
episode,
away and watch it now. Yeah.
yeah, the penultimate episode last week, at the time of recording this, it all kind of comes to a head, and it's going to lead into the finale.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to that finale as well. I'm really
Mm.
looking forward to it. But that's more about what I've been doing recently in Star Wars. So as we
Yeah. Yeah.
segue
Yeah.
nicely into the last question,
Mm.
what have you been up to recently in Star Wars?
Kind of trying to find the time to listen to Audible books and sort of deciding what I want from it, really. Because I used to be concerned, but ultimately what will be will be. I was very concerned about where they were going to go with the Star Wars franchise next. What are they going to do to it? How will this affect when you talk to the next generation and their idea of it? And are they actually going to lose what it's really about? And it can be about so many things because it is so big, and that was always the case, especially when it expanded into the expanded universe. But ultimately, Star Wars is about the Skywalkers. That's how it started.
Mm,
But obviously, everybody will have a different opinion. That's fine, but that's just for me. And I loved and hated the sequel trilogy.
mm,
I felt that they've got a nice new team of people there. I don't know what they're going to do with them. I'm amazed that all three of those haven't had those characters haven't had their own series. What are they doing? All right, I'm not including the Lego series here. Come on, we're talking about them.
live
Especially,
action.
I really liked Poe Dameron. I don't know. He had a proper Han Solo hotshot
Yeah,
I'm a dick
I'm
kind of attitude.
I
And
am
I'm just
very
going to get a
vocal in
smack.
I'm very vocal in my dislike of Poe Dameron.
People said that about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for me, it's not necessarily Poe Dameron. And this is nothing against the man. He's a wonderful actor and he's very versatile. But I've never enjoyed Oscar Isaac in anything
Yeah.
I've seen him in.
All right.
He's just one of those actors for me that I'm at a point now where I see him on the cast list and I just go, uh. Like, he's always put in a really good performance. He was brilliant acting wise
Yeah,
as Moon Knight, switching between the characters. Apocalypse was not his fault. Uh,
yeah.
And the writing for Star Wars for Poe Dameron for me really let him down. But it always seems to be him, and it always seems to be in the role in the movie I dislike the most. So
Yeah, you know
it
what? It can just be bad luck, and
it
that is
can be.
speaking from an actor's point of view as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's because it's what they know, it's a character. I mean, I'll tell you a person who I liked him, but it was the same in absolutely everything, and it's only now that he suddenly decided to revolutionise his position, and that was Hugh Grant.
Yes, I would completely agree with that.
And I think everybody else has now sat there and gone, "Oh wow," because of Heretic, it's called, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
And yet, do you know what? I could totally see him as an officer in an empire somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think he's really come into his own. I think he very much ended up getting typecast as the British love interest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But he didn't change anything.
No, he didn't help himself until he took a bit of a break, and he came back and he did there was one about a British politician. I can't remember the name of it that he was in. He was absolutely fantastic in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a brilliant example of someone who completely gets typecast. You just kind of, and everyone went through a phase of just looking at it going, oh, Hugh Grant, I know what this is going to be.
The thing with Disney's problems and everybody else's problems, you get too many different writers with different ideas, and this is when it can go wrong. And the classic example was indeed that sequel trilogy. I don't understand why Abrams wasn't involved in the second of the three, episode 8. I mean, there was some stuff in it where when Luke dies at the end, really?
It felt anticlimactic.
That was so. I mean, it was cool, you know, the fact that he wasn't there. He'd projected himself through the Force. Now, that bit was good. But then for him to just go, I'm going to die now.
Yeah, and I think I think it very much came down to, again, interpretation. A lot of people just went, oh, he's just died. And I went, it's the effort of projecting himself through the Forces because of people like us who are love the lore and love the expanded universe as well as, or legends as well as canon, and we've gone through the pre-Disney stuff. We know the effects these Force.
We knew what they were before.
Yeah, and obviously the Legends Luke was so ridiculously overpowered. I think I don't have any issue with, originally it was going to be 3 separate directors, and I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. My issue very much
following the same idea.
Yeah, and my issue very much was, at no point did someone sit down and go, these are the beats of episode 7, these are the beats of episode 8, this is where we want to end up to with episode 9.
Yeah.
No one did that. They went, right, director, creative freedom, go. And you end up with them having to pivot on episode 9, becoming a bloated retconning mess for it. I actually really enjoyed it.
It was brilliant and terrible. So it was brilliant because it was a fantastic story. I love seeing Emperor Palpatine. I loved all that. But then you were like, okay, how did he come back? What was where's been hiding all these years?
Somehow Palpatine returned is the explanation, and it's wonderful.
All this stuff, you know, and since when is Rey his bloody granddaughter? Great twist, but at the same time, are you trying to convince me that this man had a son that he didn't convert to the dark side? We're talking Emperor Palpatine here. That's not going to happen. What are you joking? Yeah,
they do explain it, but you have to put in the time and read books for them to explain. So the explanation is his son, in quotes, is a clone of himself.
Yeah, I gathered it probably was. I didn't imagine he got freaky with a lady somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, who doesn't have Force powers, and so is therefore shunned by Palpatine, and he then escapes from Exegol, is in hiding for a number of years, and that's all explained in Shadows of the Sith, which is a really, really good book. And it's Luke and Hondo. I wish it was Hondo. Luke and Lando and Ochi of Bestoon, who is obviously pivotal in episode 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many great books. What sort of books do you enjoy listening to? And I'll see if I can pull a recommendation out of my head.
So I've only in the last year and a half gotten into Audible and kind of not been into the Star Wars ones very recently. I've been more or less listening to autobiographies, history, and other things at the minute because I'm trying to catch up with other things. But when I do listen to Star Wars, the one I've listened to recently was The Tatooine Ghost, which
Yep,
was Han
good.
and Leia. I actually really loved, some of it was a bit daft in parts, but I really loved the courtship of Princess Leia. So
Yeah,
I get that as an audible. And then, I liked expanding on those two. And I have started listening to, because I have read it, Shadows of the Empire, a book that has its own soundtrack,
yes,
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, it's got its own
yeah.
soundtrack. And because it's so popular. Because and I say I started listening to it, I can't remember what they call him in the book, because I have a book that pronounced his name as Shizor, but apparently it's Ziza, Prince
Okay,
Ziza. Yeah, but in this
recognize the
book,
name.
I literally have it in there. So he's like a green Farleen, they call it a Farleen or a Farleen
Yep,
character. Yeah, changes color depending on his mood,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he is, I think, he's the Lord of Black Sun, and
Oh
he's
yeah,
very pals and palsy with the Emperor. Vader can't stand him. He can't stand Vader, and it's because basically something went wrong on his family's planet. Some virus was going to get out, and so Vader did, in what he thought was the best idea, of blowing up that lab to stop this virus from escaping, which,
yeah,
for the greater good, he actually was a hero in a way, but it did unfortunately kill people within the lab and surrounding people, and that included some of Ziza's family,
yeah.
Prince. And he obviously wants payback, and he knows that Luke Skywalker is Vader's son. And
Oh,
so
okay.
he's going to go after Luke in retaliation. Meanwhile, Vader's like, "You're not going after my son." And he's trying to get to his son as well, because this is now after the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
So there is that. And obviously you got the usual crew of Han and Leia in there, and Chewbacca and the droids. And there is a lovely scene where he's trying to seduce Leia. She manages to sort of overpower him, which I think she's the only woman who has managed to, sort of thing. But yeah, so you go into that. It is quite a good novel. There is a lot going on in that, so I do recommend it. But
yeah.
there
That
is some
sounds,
humour. You do actually, for the first time, if only time, in any of the books that I've read or know about, you see a very human side to Vader. So this is long before any sequels or prequels came out.
mm,
There is a moment, and I'm absolutely certain that it is either Shadows of the Empire or in something like Tales of the Bounty Hunter, where it actually says that Vader is quite literally sat in a bath. He's literally chilling out in the bathtub, but
with his
not
duck.
like how we see it. He's obviously in a pressurized chamber so he can breathe, very much
Mm,
like he is when he's in his bacta tank. So
yeah.
it's the same idea, except for it's a bath. I think he sees his reflection either in a mirror or in a droid, and he smashes it up because obviously it bothers him,
Mm,
you know. And he's just mulling over things with his son and stuff. But ironically, never ever until episode 1 came out does anybody ever discuss the mother of the twins or Vader's thoughts on their mother.
mm.
It's interesting how nobody once thought to go down that route. But I don't know if that's because they were waiting for George to one day come up with episode 1, 2, and 3.
I
Or, well, it was originally 1, 2, and 3, I think, when he did the original trilogy, wasn't it? And then he
Yeah, and then
waited.
he was either going to go. So I do think it was George who was stopping the stories about the twins' mother from
Mm,
memory. I seem to recall reading that
mm,
or hearing that at some point.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think originally he was trying to decide whether he was then going to tell the story of Anakin or Luke and go either 1, 2,
Mm,
3 or 7, 8, 9. And obviously he went for the prequels because he
yeah.
felt the technology was at a point where he could show
You could play with it,
Jedi,
yeah,
the Jedi in
yeah,
the height of their powers as he initially intended.
yeah.
But yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a brilliant
But
Shadows of the Empire is a brilliant
Shadows
recommendation.
of the
Thank you.
Empire, yeah, it's a comic book version and a novel, which I've got both of course. Vader's Quest was very good as a comic,
Mm,
when he finds out he's got a son. But as a book to recommend to me, I would say anything that expands on basically Han and Leia and Lando and Luke because I like those, and
I
I feel like I've explored Anakin Skywalker to death now, and in his
Yeah,
prequels and stuff,
I'd definitely recommend Shadows of the Sith.
I
I
mean,
think that is going to be right where you enjoy Star Wars.
mm,
As I say, Luke and Lando, it's all
yeah,
about, it explains a lot and answers a lot of questions for episode 9 as well. So if
hmm
you love stroke hate that film, it should bring you more into the love category of it.
yeah,
So I would really recommend that. There's a lot of great Luke stories, legends and legends more so than canon. I've mainly been focusing on the High Republic recently, which
yeah,
is again absolutely fantastic. Bloodlines is really good in terms of Leia and Han. That's a
yeah.
really good book.
Yeah, I want to explore how she feels about the whole situation. She's suddenly got a brother. Her father's this person that she's hated all her life. I want to explore more of that. Yeah.
That element to it is explored in that book.
And how to keep it
Vader
secret.
being her
Yeah.
father,
Mm.
and that is really good. Resistance Reborn as well actually is really good. That's got a lot of Leia and Poe in it.
Yeah.
That's a really really good book. But thank you very much, Mackenzie. That's really really
No.
appreciated. Let us know where we can find you. You've obviously mentioned you're an actor, so let us know what you're working on at the moment, and anywhere anyone might want to follow you can find you.
So I currently am doing murder mysteries. I've actually got 3 coming up soon. I think they're all sold out, I'm afraid, but they are with Tall Tales Murder Mysteries. But you can basically find me on Instagram as Mackenzie Vee Crompton. If it's a private page, don't add me because that's my private one. But if it's the public one, you can follow me on there. I've also started doing little bits of painting and artwork where I paint landscape and stick a little ghost in it because I also run a ghost walk in York called Shadows of York. So you can follow me on Shadows of York as well. Yeah, there's a few things going on there.
Excellent. That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Now, but no, I really appreciate your time and for the conversation. And I'm going to hand back to future James now, and I will we'll see what he's been up to recently in Star Wars as well. Thank you very much,
All right.
Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mackenzie, for that conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Had a great time sitting down and talking Star Wars with you. There is one thing that Mackenzie wanted me to add in, and that was she mentioned during the course of that interview and conversation that she didn't like the fact that Kylo Ren was also called Ben. And the explanation for that is very simple from Mackenzie's point of view, and I don't really disagree. I'm not going to lie. It was something that irritated me when I first watched it. Just kind of accepted it now at this point in time, though. It was the fact that Leia never actually met Ben Kenobi. So we know she knew in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that he introduced himself as Ben, so that's kind of retconned that a little bit. But at the point of, obviously, the sequel trilogy coming out, Kenobi wasn't finalised, all the rest of it, so it's a little bit of a retcon to fit it in. So I don't necessarily have huge problems with that. Han didn't actually like him, which I think still stands. I'm not too familiar with how Han felt about him, and I don't think it's particularly clear from the movies. He saw him as a payday, as a way to pay off his debt to Jabba. So at best, he was a client. I don't think he had any particular feelings with him one way or the other. But the main one, I think, for Mackenzie, and certainly for myself at that point in time, was that it was Luke's son's name in Legends. Now, Luke obviously has a much deeper connection to Ben Kenobi, grew up with him on Tatooine and knew him and then was trained by him, so it made that much more sense for Luke's son to be called Ben and not Leia's son. So that was one thing that she asked me to sort of add in that she didn't get a chance to expand upon on her comment there at one point. But turning our attention to what I've been up to in Star Wars this last month, it's not a huge list. I'm not going to lie. I was incredibly sick over the Christmas and New Year period, and I'm all better now, mostly. Still got a little bit of a cough, dragging on, but it is what it is. But I did get Jedi Survivor for Christmas, So I have played a little bit of that. I have started the story mode. I am not one to ramp up the difficulty level too much on story modes. I just want to get through and experience the story. I'm not a huge gamer, but I have done the first, in air quotes, level on Coruscant, and I've just landed on the planet to meet with Grease. So I will keep you updated on how I'm getting on with that. Time is very much at a premium at the moment for myself, so I can't imagine I'm going to have huge amounts of time in the coming month or so to really sit down and crack out a lot of the game. But you never know. We'll see what happens. I have been enjoying it though. It's a really, really good game. I'm fully sucked in. I'm enjoying it just as much, but potentially even a little bit more than Fallen Order. Fallen Order was a phenomenal game. But on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes as well, I've really got my rhythm back with this game, and I'm playing it more regularly, and I'm engaging with my guild. Huge shout out to my guild and anyone in it who has bear with me through this sort of soul searching period for my place in the game. But I've continued farming the Peridia troopers, so Captain Enoch, Death Trooper, and Stormtrooper Peridia. But I've also added the new Sabine and Huyang into that as well. So I'm farming all of those characters up. I'm also pushing for relic levels on Snips Ahsoka, so young Ahsoka, as well as Fulcrum, so Ahsoka, so the one from Rebels. And that's all with a view to reaching the GL level Ahsoka, the Galactic Legend, who is one of the best characters in the game. Meant to be, so we'll see what she's actually like when I gain access to her, but that's probably still going to be a couple of months away. I still need to start farming General Hera from the Ahsoka show, and then just lift up a few other characters up into the appropriate relic levels. So hopefully that's going to be a couple of months only, 2 to 3 months maybe, but hopefully it'll be worth it. We'll see. On the collectibles side of things, I didn't get huge amounts for Christmas. Following Christmas, I have made a rather large, it was a lot of cards, but it wasn't too expensive, Card Market purchase. So Card Market is a website where you can buy singles, you can buy sealed products, you can buy accessories, all sorts of things to do with trading card games. And it's not just Star Wars Unlimited either. There's loads of different trading card games on there. There's Pokemon, there's Lorcana, there's all the big ones. And so I made a purchase on there for just to kind of try and finish off my Twilight of the Republic base set, which is my main focus, but also I got quite a few cards for my Yoda folder. So I'll link the YouTube video below, as well as the YouTube video for the unboxing of the Tazo collection, which is mentioned in the interview with Mackenzie. So I'll link that below as well. I've also done a couple of different sort of Facebook purchases as well, and a trade as well. So the Facebook trade was with a guy called Owen on one of the Star Wars Unlimited centric groups on Facebook, and I purchased a couple of different Mandalorian cards off of him. So they have Grogu on it in there, so they're going to go into my Yoda folder. That was really good, really pleased to get those, and my other purchase has left me with only 4 cards needed for the Twilight of the Republic set, so I'm very, very close with that. The other one I did was I was actually contacted by a viewer of my YouTube channel. So if you want to have your chance to replicate this, then by all means head over to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe and tip the bell icon, leave comments and all that stuff, or you can just drop me an email. He contacted me, we had a bit of a back and forth, and he ended up sending me a list of his wants and what he was missing from his collection. And I was able to provide him with 20 cards towards that collection. So I have a big bulk collection, as well as a full trade binder, which is technically overflowing at this point in time. So I am more than happy to sort out a deal, get stuff posted. He lives in America, so it's a really good example to use that I am happy to ship internationally as well. So that's on its way to him, and hopefully he will enjoy it, and it'll be everything that he is expecting. I do share pictures and everything like that as well, so you can see the condition of the cards before they go out. Comics wise, I have been very slack. As I said, I was very sick at the beginning of the month, and the effect on not just my recovery but also my work levels has taken effect on my free time in terms of being able to sit down and read of any kind, really. So I haven't actually read any comics this month, but my queue is getting bigger. I've recently had all of the recent releases hit my Kindle, so ready to go as soon as I am able to. I am actually going on holiday in February, so hopefully I will have some time where I can chill out and read some comics and catch up, and the February update will be a big one on the comics side of things. Books-wise, I have read The Old Republic Deceived, which is a Darth Malgus-centric book, as a tie-in to the multiplayer online RPG. Really good book if you like the Sith and if you like the Old Republic. Big caveats on that. If you want to hear a full discussion about that, I am going to be sitting down with the guys at Source Pages, probably not until March at this point in time, but I will let you guys know when that episode is out, and you should go and check them out anyway. They're a great podcast. Hayley and Brian are obviously regular contributors to the show and really good friends, and they're a really, really good podcast to check out. I have also started the second Aftermath book, so I've done quite a bit of research into the Aftermath trilogy because I really didn't gel and vibe with book one. And it would appear I'm not alone on that. So I'm quite pleased. That's kind of quite comforting. There's a lot of people sort of saying, yeah, book one is a bit slow. You're introduced to a lot of characters and there's a lot going on, but it just still feels like something missing. So far, I'm on chapter 7 and I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it so far. Really, really good book. Everything is building at the moment, and you can see it and you can feel it, and the way the audiobook emphasizes things, it's really, really good. I've really, really enjoyed it. TV wise, obviously finished Skeleton Crew, episodes 5 to 8. Skeleton Crew. What can I say about Skeleton Crew? First off, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic TV show. I've made it, vocalized it on this podcast in the past. I did not have a lot of hope for this show. I just didn't care. That is the perfect truth. The trailers didn't get me excited. I didn't really see how it was going to tie in with the wider universe, because it is meant to be part of the Mandoverse, and tie into the supposed heir to the Empire. We don't have an official name for it just yet. But the way it was done is just absolutely top notch. Jude Law, phenomenal actor, really, really good, and he fits the character he played in Skeleton Crew so well. The kids, watching it as an adult, the kids were annoying. Every single one of them were annoying in some form or fashion. But you know what kids are? To adults, kids are annoying. They're a bit whiny and they're a bit I know best and all the rest of it. But there's such I grew to love them as characters by the end of it, and I wouldn't want to pick a favourite, but it was probably KB. I still found Wim a little bit immature, a little bit naive, and a little bit dreamy about how the world is, and that a Jedi is still going to come and save him and all the rest of it. Fern, I've met a million Ferns in my life growing up. Not bad, but just annoying. I'm the leader, I'm this, I'm that, I know how to do this. So, yeah, there's a lot that you can take from Skeleton Crew, and the way they've left it, if they just decide to leave it, they absolutely can. It's great. It was a perfect ending. A lot of people I saw online didn't like the ending because it didn't answer everything. Well, you know what? We don't get answers to a lot of stuff. We don't. We just don't. The way they left it, if they left it alone and never went back to Skeleton Crew, it's a one and done, perfectly satisfactory series. If they tie it into the wider universe, they've left that open as a real easy way to transition into that. I also listened to a documentary on YouTube. I say listened, it had a video to it as well. I listened to part 1 and 2 of a New Jedi Order documentary which was recommended to me by someone on X. And that was really, really good. It's about 4 hours long, combining parts 1 and 2, and parts 3 and 4 are also now out as well. And it just details how the series came together and the trials and tribulations of it. And it has interviews with the authors and how they came up with the different stories and the different characters and all that sort of thing, what influenced them throughout all of that. And it was really, really interesting and really, really good. So I'd really recommend that. And if you want the link to that, drop us a message on X or drop me an email or comment on a YouTube video, and I'll be able to share the link for that for you. But really, really good documentary. So that's everything I've done this month in Star Wars. It's not a huge amount, but as I say, time has been a little bit of a premium recently. But I have been keeping an eye out on what you guys have been up to this month in Star Wars. And we are going to start with Dan Griffin, a guest from a couple of episodes ago. So Dan's been up to quite a bit recently in Star Wars. He's, at the time I originally put my post out on X, it was middle of January, and he was sorting out his Disney Plus membership, which had come up for renewal. So he said to me, initially he was going to update me on Skeleton Crew. I'm fairly sure he has since watched Skeleton Crew and we had a conversation about it. But he has been playing a lot of Jedi Survivor. He's about 30 hours in so far and is absolutely loving it. And he kind of ended it there, really, because he says absolutely loving it. No spoilers, as I know you've just started. So unfortunately, I talked to Dan in about 4 different places, which can get quite confusing at times as to pulling out the updates for this show. So I can confirm he has now finished Skeleton Crew as well. And he said it was a lot of fun, like Goonies meets Lost in Space wrapped in Star Wars. Felt like a 90s older kids show, but in a good way. He said although all the kids, bar KB, annoyed him, but he's not parental, so of course they did. Really glad you enjoyed it, Dan, and thank you for talking to me about Star Wars, and long may it continue. Turning our attention to Hayley Hobbs, she has sent me her list of what she's been up to recently. So she's read Mace Windu, The Glass Abyss. She has said, unfortunately, it wasn't for her. I can absolutely get why people don't enjoy that book, if they don't. I ended up really caring about Mace Windu as a character by the end of it, but it is a bit slow. And so if you want a fast-paced, action-packed book, it's probably not it. There are probably better books in the Star Wars universe for doing that, but I thought it was a decent book, but not for Hayley in this occasion. Comics-wise, she's read The Battle of Jakku, Republic Under Siege, issues number 1 to 4. And issues 1 to 3 of Battle of Jakku Last Stand. She's read Inquisitors, issues 1 to 4, and she's finished the Darth Maul Black, White and Red, which was issues 3 and 4. So really, really good selection there. And I've read Battle of Jakku Republic Under Siege, issues 1 to 4. I don't think I've started Last Stand yet. Inquisitors, I really enjoyed. Really, really enjoyed that comic arc. But I've learned to really love the Inquisitorius. I think I just enjoy saying it more than anything else, especially their base. Fortress Inquisitorius is just a wonderful thing to say. Darth Maul, Black, White and Red. I've said it before. I cannot recommend that series enough. It is so good. The artwork on it is so nice. The Black, White and Red only really, really works for Darth Maul. I don't think it worked for Darth Vader. The stories were okay. But Darth Maul, the story is good. The artwork is out of this world. TV and movies. So she's finished Skeleton Crew and she just put so much fun. And if you want a 3-word review that absolutely hits the nail on the head for Skeleton Crew, that's it. So much fun. It's really good. She's rewatched The Force Awakens which she watched on New Year's Eve, and she's also rewatched Ahsoka recently as well. So thank you, Hayley, for that update, and hopefully you enjoyed The Force Awakens, and I know you enjoyed Ahsoka because we have spoken about it. So our next update comes from Brian Klein, and he, as usual, has sent in a voice note.
So what I've been doing lately with Star Wars is I read the original Heir to the Empire Throne trilogy. I got finished with Skeleton Crew, rewatched it, loved it again, rewatched Ahsoka, rewatched the sequel trilogy. I got a bunch of new Funko Pops. I put together the Lego Katana, Jabba's sail barge. I got the 3 3/4 inch Ghost HasLab thing that was $500. It's gigantic and it's awesome. And I'm trying to think, did the podcasting and what other book did I finish? I knew I finished another book, but the Shadow of the Sith, finished that one as well. So that should be about it. My normal, month and a half of Star Wars stuff. Peace.
Thank you, Brian, as always. And the thing that jumps out at me there is two things. You rewatch everything, and I don't know how you have the time. I'm very jealous of the fact that you managed to rewatch all this stuff, because I need to really plan in a rewatch if I'm going to do one. The second one is the Ghost HasLab. I've seen this thing in my local comic book shop. It is ridiculously huge, and I'm desperately want it, but I can't justify spending that much money on it. The closest I can get to buying something like that is there is a new Lego set, the Grogu and Pram, which I'm really looking forward to picking up, and that's like £80. So I would love to get something like the Ghost. And if anyone hasn't seen this thing, it's stupidly big. It is a scale to the 3 3/4 inch figures, and it has a detachable Phantom 2. I think it comes with all the figures as well, all the Ghost crew and everything. It's just amazing and really beautiful. I am desperate to see one in the flesh. I don't even have to own it. I just want to see it and look at it. That's all I want to do. I'd love to have that. Shadows of the Sith, the one you couldn't remember, Brian. Criminal. Absolutely criminal. It's a fantastic book, and would really recommend anyone who wants to learn more about Luke and how Palpatine returned. Insert the various memes here. And Lando during the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. That's a really good book to do that. So I'd really recommend it. We have an update from Todd, who has also recently shared his ally code with me on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So Todd, hopefully I can help you out. I have sent you the friend request on it, so hopefully if you need anything, I can help you out on the game. But Todd's update is he read the Obi-Wan series Marvel adaptation, the comic book series. They've been doing those for all of the recent TV shows, so I fully expect a Skeleton Crew one to come out in 2025. He's finished reading Mace Windu Glass Abyss, and he enjoyed it. He read the Yoda 10-issue Marvel run, which, if you haven't read that, very good. You have the opening issue, kind of sets up the rest of it, and then you have three issue arcs, and there's a lot of cameos and Easter eggs in there as well. Really good 10-issue series. He's finished issue 50 of the Marvel Star Wars run, which I am at the beginning of. I've only read the first 6 issues of that run, so I've got a lot to catch up on. And May is coming around the corner. I need to get through my last May purchases. Hopefully I'll be able to get to that in the not too distant future. He got caught up on the Marvel Inquisitors run. He read the Mace Windu 4-issue Marvel run. Finished reading Deceived, the Malgus novel. And he's got a whole bunch of Star Wars gifts for Christmas. And he said, too much to list. It was truly an epic haul. He has sent a picture, so I will run through what he's got on the broad strokes of it, because there is some amazing stuff on there. He's read issue number 50 of the Darth Vader Marvel run. I should have that in my list of things to read. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they close out this series of the Darth Vader comic. He's reading the Battle of Jakku comic series and really, really loving it. He's watched Skeleton Crew and he's enjoyed it. And he's continuing to play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. He's up above 3 million GP now. And he's unlocked both Revans and Malak. I remember when I unlocked both Revans, and you have to unlock both Revans, light side and dark side, and then you have to use them to beat Malak. And it's a really, really difficult event, and it drove me insane for quite some time. If you haven't unlocked him already, he's called Gas in the game, so General Anakin Skywalker, the Clone Wars version. I hated that event. It drove me insane. It took me like 4 days to beat to beat the main tier to actually unlock him, and then you have to go back and beat another couple of tiers or whatever to fully power him up to 7 stars. I think you unlock him at 5 stars if memory serves. But if you need any tips or anything like that, my entire team that won that are exactly the same relic level and stats as they were back then, because I wasn't really using them for anything else. But that's beside the point. So Todd's haul on the broad strokes, he's got 9 Funkos, including 3 different Christmas Grogus, Cobb Vanth, HK-47, Jango Fett, Boba Fett, young Boba Fett, and an Anakin Skywalker in the Naboo Starfighter with R2-D2. I've seen that. That's a lovely pop. That is a lovely Funko Pop right there. Got a few Star Wars Hot Wheels vehicles as well as a Squadrons vehicle, those being an X-Wing, Anakin's Episode 3 TIE Fighter, the ETA-2, and a TIE Fighter as well. It's got a couple of what look like 3 3/4 inch figures, and some lovely Star Wars slippers, which look great, and then a few t-shirts as well, including mainly focusing around Darth Vader and Stormtroopers, but there's also a Chewie one in there as well. So a really, really good Star Wars haul for Todd there. I am incredibly jealous, Todd. Our final bit of feedback comes from Josh Hoyt, good friend of the podcast, and he has said that he absolutely loves Skeleton Crew and how it tied into the previous Star Wars content in a genuine story, plus leaving the door open. He said that the kid actors nailed it, and Jude Law made you like or dislike his character. So he did a really, really good job with that. Huge SM33 fan, got some more Star Wars Lego sets and Black Series figures, and then he says Happy New Year. So thank you very much, Josh. He also says me and him need to have a catch up soon, and we absolutely do. Apologies, it's been a little bit busy over this side of the pond for me recently, so we will get that in the diary soon. I did go on to ask him what extra Lego sets he got, and it was the Ahsoka Interceptor, the Arc 170, and some acrylic stands from a company to show off the Bad Batch and Slave 1 stuff. So that is awesome, and really, really like the pictures you shared with me as well on X. So that's going to do it for this month, and it's a bit of a long one this month, I think, and so apologies for that. Well done if you've made it all the way through to the end. If you have made it through to the end and you like what you hear, please do think about following the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. Leave a 5-star review if you want to, or just any review will be appreciated. It really helps the algorithm work. But the best way to support what I'm doing is to go over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. And if you want to follow the videos I'm uploading, I do upload this podcast on there as well. You can just tick the little bell icon and it will let you know when I upload. So look forward to seeing how February goes for everyone, and I will see you in a month's time. Until then, may the Force be with you. Always.